All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to start by looking at a completely shocking piece of dashcam footage from what was supposed to be just a regular, boring Sunday afternoon drive. Imagine you're cruising down the New Jersey Turnpike. It's one of the busiest stretches of Interstate 95 in the country, right? Traffic is moving, weather is totally clear, and you're just minding your own business.
So inside a delivery truck for the H&S family of bakeries, the driver is literally just singing to himself. He casually puts his cell phone on the dashboard, but then he glances out his window to the right, and then he looks again, obviously panicked. What happens next is just terrifying. You hear this deafening screech, a violent crash, and instantly, out of nowhere, heavy debris and shards of glass completely obliterate the dashcam's view.
He pulls over to the shoulder in an absolute panic, as you'd expect. The dust is settling, adrenaline is pumping, and there's just one massive question hanging in the air. What on earth just hit this delivery truck? And the answer totally defies normal highway logic. You know, this wasn't a stray rock kicked up by an 18-wheeler, and it wasn't a car swerving out of its lane. It was something huge, and it fell directly out of the sky.
Section 1, Flight 161's Low Approach.
Here's how this crazy sequence of events unfolds right around 2 p.m. United Airlines Flight 169, which is this massive Boeing 767 arriving all the way from Venice, Italy, is making its final descent into Newark Liberty International Airport. Now, to understand how this happened, you kind of have to know that planes landing at Newark actually sail perilously low over multiple lanes of turnpike traffic. The runway sits literally just a stone's throw from the edge of the highway. But on this specific Sunday, the jet came in unusually low. In a matter of seconds, the underbelly of the aircraft actually clips a highway light pole. Immediately after that, debris from the landing gear tire rockets downward and just smashes into our bakery delivery truck. And yet somehow, mere moments later, the plane touches down on the Newark runway like it was just another routine landing.
And as if showering a bread truck with plane debris wasn't chaotic enough, there was a whole chain reaction. That massive highway light pole the Boeing 767 clipped? Yeah, it didn't just fall harmlessly onto the grass. It plummeted straight down into the active lanes of the turnpike and violently struck a Jeep that was just driving by. It's wild. We literally have a multi-ton aircraft interacting with highway infrastructure, turning everyday objects into massive projectiles.
Section 2, A Miraculous Aftermath.
Now, with a huge commercial passenger jet basically colliding with highway infrastructure, you would absolutely expect a catastrophic toll. But the casualty count on the plane? 0. That is the crucial takeaway here. Not a single passenger or crew member on board that United flight suffered any injuries whatsoever. Despite tearing through a light pole and raining debris down onto a busy interstate, the Boeing 767 landed safely and everyone inside walked away completely unscathed.
And miraculously, the outcome on the ground was just as astounding. The delivery truck driver, Warren Boardley, was actually the only person injured in this entire ordeal. And after having his windshield entirely obliterated by airplane debris, his injuries were just some minor glass cuts to his arm. He was taken to the hospital, treated, and promptly discharged. The guy literally walked away from a jet-to-truck collision.
Chuck Paterankis, the vice president of transportation for the bakery that owns the truck, really hit the nail on the head. He said, and I quote, "A little help from God went a long way tonight for everybody on the plane and including the driver." He totally recognized the sheer luck involved here. Because, let's be honest, the margins between a crazy survival story you tell at parties and an absolute highway tragedy were incredibly thin here.
Section 3, Investigating the Close Call.
Okay, surviving is one thing, but figuring out how a multi-million-dollar jet ends up scraping the turnpike is another. So to uncover the truth, authorities wasted absolutely no time. They immediately executed 3 critical protocols. First, the NTSB stepped right in to secure the flight's data and voice recorders. Second, United Airlines removed the flight crew from service, which is standard procedure during a rigorous safety investigation like this. And third, maintenance teams locked down the aircraft to fully evaluate the physical damage to the undercarriage.
Those cockpit voice and flight data recorders, what we all know as the black boxes, are going to be the absolute focal point for investigators. The NTSB requested those immediately because they log every single performance metric, every altitude shift, and all the pilot audio. That data is what will allow them to precisely reconstruct those final, terrifying seconds of the descent. And experts are already formulating theories on this. Aviation expert Kyle Bailey weighed in, and he highlighted a really major possibility, saying, "My gut feeling is they probably just misjudged that undercarriage, how far below the airplane it actually sits. You also have to factor in that this was the end of a really long transatlantic flight from Italy, so pilot fatigue becomes a very real variable when calculating those split-second low-altitude clearances."
Well, the good news for anyone looking for answers is that we won't be kept in the dark for long. Federal investigators were on the ground in Newark the very next day, and they promised a preliminary report within 30 days. That rapid response is so crucial for figuring out if this was human error, a mechanical fault, or something environmental.
Section 4. A history of airport risks.
Because while this specific close call had a miraculously good outcome, it highlights a pretty grim reality about our incredibly congested airspaces. The margins for error are terrifyingly thin, and we've seen a clear pattern of devastating incidents involving commercial flights in the region. Just look at this. 1 month prior to this Newark incident, an Air Canada jet hit a fire truck at LaGuardia, killing 2 pilots and injuring over 40 people. And just 14 months before that, an American Airlines jet actually collided with a military helicopter mid-air over the Potomac, leaving over 60 people dead. These aren't just isolated numbers. They're stark reminders of the inherent dangers when massive heavy machinery and dense human populations share the exact same narrow spaces.
Which brings us to our final thought to wrap up this explainer. With major airport runways literally sitting a stone's throw from incredibly busy interstates, are we relying a little too much on luck to keep our routine commutes from turning into massive disasters? Warren Bordley barely survived his Sunday delivery route. But it definitely makes you wonder just how much risk is permanently built into the everyday infrastructure right above our heads. Thanks for tuning in, and definitely keep your eyes on the road, and maybe the sky, next time you drive near an airport.